Always remember, the opinion you follow should be your own. Just consider the things stated here to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online.
Happy Friday, Mike.
Happy Friday, Phil, and everybody else out there listening to the Random Waypoints podcast. Another episode here. Excited to be with you today.
Mike, we got a lot to cover, so let's get right into it.
Let's do it.
Mike, this is wild. The Oscars are abandoning broadcast TV for YouTube starting in 2029. And it's landing perfectly with everything we've talked about before. The death of the movie theater, Netflix buying Warner Brothers, and now the Oscars on YouTube. Another Hollywood institution falling into the hands of online platforms. So, Mike, isn't YouTube broadcasting the Oscars like shaking hands with the guy who's trying to kill you?
Well, I just find it funny because it's almost as if they were listening to our podcast and said, hey, let's move over to streaming media. But here's the reality, Phil. The reality is the streaming organizations like YouTube, which is owned by Google and Netflix and Paramount and Amazon, they're the guys with the money. So think about it this way. I mean, I'm not going to be surprised if the NFL announces that their entire schedule is going to switch over to streaming media. You know, they already do like Thursday night, I think, is on Amazon Prime. And so, you know, I mean, I just think it's just a continuation of what we've been saying for the last bunch of episodes. It's the end of mainstream terrestrial media like we've known for our whole lives growing up. It's over. And yeah, it is a little bit like going to the devil because now, so here's the interesting thing. YouTube, of course, is denying this. I did hear this come out already in the press where there were a bunch of actors that were, you know, hey, you know, we're going to YouTube. This is bullshit. This is like sleeping with the enemy. But YouTube, in fairness, has an agenda to expand their offerings more into that kind of big screen-ish production. And it's interesting to have a platform that can share, I'm going to call it a large budget professional production with a guy like me that could be shooting a video with an iPhone. It's on the same platform. And by the way, we both have the same potential or ability to attract an audience.
Well, I think they have more.
Time. Yeah,
I think
crazy.
YouTube. I have YouTube Premium, so you pay. Yeah, you pay a few dollars, and the biggest thing for me is that I haven't watched an ad in years on YouTube. Yeah. But one of the other offerings they have is they have a bunch of movies, and that's without you buying the TV version. You could they give you a lot of free top movies. This is going to help them a lot with making premium a more premium thing. I hope that doesn't mean that the cost is going to go up a few dollars, but if it does, what they've purchased is probably worth it. They've got football games now. They're pretty much television now. That's all. That's just like one of the last things they needed.
I don't think cost is going to go up because their platform is based on advertising anyways, right? And because you're bringing in a big thing like the Oscars or whatnot, it's just going to be able to drive either one of two things: more advertisers to the platform or more expensive ads, which, by the way, ends up helping YouTube creators like myself as well. So I think this is a win. In a way, this is a win for the little guy.
Yes. Mike, sticking with Hollywood, director and actor Rob Reiner and his wife, Michelle Reiner, were found dead in their Brentwood home this week. Nick Reiner, his son, was charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder in connection with the deaths. Reiner's career spanned decades across television and film and remains widely cited within the industry. Mike, This story has moved quickly from entertainment news into a national cycle.
I mean, once again, I mean, what are we talking about here? We're talking about mental health and drugs, I think, as unfortunately the son was, hindsight's 2020, Monday morning quarterbacking here. It was almost, I don't want to say it was obvious that this guy was a risk, but I mean, this guy was a risk. I mean, if you look at now, I watched during this week, past interviews of the son and the dad, and you watch like how many times he went to rehab and how many times, I mean, I heard him talking about going crazy. And I mean, sadly, this is an American phenomenon that is frightening. And there were signs even the night before, from what I've been hearing, at a Conan O'Brien party or whatever, where he was acting bizarre, to say the least, I guess. So, I mean, it's a really sad thing to have to witness this. I mean, it's I don't know. Unfortunately, I don't have the answers or the solutions to these problems, but we've talked about this before, and I think we've got some stories we're going to talk about here on the podcast later on. This is an epidemic in America with mass shootings, and in this case is, I guess it's not a mass shooting, it's two people, but it's the same along the same lines. It's a real issue.
I agree, Mike. Let's try to make lemon out of lemonade. I mean, lemonade out of lemons. Do you have any favorite movies?
Man, you asked me that. Just so you guys that are out there in listening world understand, Phil will text me during the week and be like, "Hey, be thinking about this for when we're going to talk about on the." We don't just wing it, Well, I'm lying. We kind of do wing it, but so Phil texted me and said, "Hey, what were your top favorite films or things that Rob Reiner was involved in?" And I had to think about that for a while. Because he is like prolific from a standpoint of not only from acting. So I'm going to start with, I mean, I remember him mostly from growing up on my black and white snowy TV of Meathead in All in the Family. I mean, that goes way back, right? But then there were movies that he did. Most memorable for me, anyways, more recently was when he played the dad in what the heck was the name of the damn movie? I'm looking at my cheat sheet right here, Wolf of Wall Street, because he had some funny lines in that, man. When he's just like, what do you mean appetizers? And I mean, so that was recent, right? I mean, it was fairly recent, 2013. But he did. What about the movie that he did with? It was a Stephen King, Misery, with Kathy Bates or whatever. That was an epic, weird movie.
Kathy Bates won an Oscar.
And Kathy Bates won an Oscar for it, right? But then there was movies like Stand By Me and Spinal Tap. I mean, this goes way back. So Sure Thing. I mean, it goes on and on. There's so many movies. What about you, Phil?
So I'm gonna give them to you in order. Stand By Me, I think, is almost every male my age is one of their favorite movies. Sticking with Stand By Me for a moment, it makes a point that I want to make about Rob Reiner in general. Since he started all the way back from Meathead through his directing and writing career, there is something very similar no matter what the storyline is. They talked about real life, but they talked about it in a very hopeful and a very sentimental way. Like All in the Family, they talked about all the isms, all the bad things, but they gave you hope that the majority of people don't think that way. Yep. And the thing about Stand By Me was it started right off about talking about death, and this is kids, but it talked about it not in an adult way, but in a mature way. and a sentimental way. And I think that's why it resonates with so many people. And then I have A Few Good Men. I think that's one of the most quotable movies in all of moviedom.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
And then Just Like You, Misery. Kathy Bates was not really on my radar until that movie. Now, because of her performance in that, she's one of those people that I'll give a movie a chance if her name is involved. And then I have one you didn't mention was The Bucket List with Morgan Freeman and Jack Nicholson.
Yep.
And just
Good
being
point.
a traveler in the last of my life and trying to knock things off my bucket list. Again, another thing about the cold, hard story of life, but a lot of sentiment in it and a moral to it. And then my final one, which was the first thing I think I watched, was Spinal Tap by him.
Yeah.
It was just, I've never been a slapstick funny dude.
Right.
I've always been a person, I don't need to laugh out loud. I need it to be funny. Mm-hmm. And Spinal Tap was that. It was intelligent comedy hidden under a crazy story. And then my last one, Mike, when Harry Met Sally.
For the girls.
Again, this was another story where it was a very intelligent new look at romance and relationships. Nobody had really talked about being in the friend zone or not wanting to step up because you might risk losing a relationship. I lived in New York for a time, and anytime you go to Cat's Delicatessen, there are still people every day reenacting scenes from that movie. It's crazy.
Yep.
So I have a lot of rest in peace.
Yeah. No, it's a huge tragedy for sure. Big loss for Hollywood in general.
Mike, when someone dies, especially someone you had real conflict with, there's this unspoken pressure to suddenly rewrite history. With the deaths of Rob Reiner and his wife and the attention on how Donald Trump responded, giving their long public animosity, it raises a bigger question. Mike, when someone passes away, are you obligated to speak generously, or is it acceptable to be honest about who they were to you?
Hey, we do not shy away from saying on the podcast what we think. So here goes. Generally speaking, Phil, I think that honesty is the best potion in this case for most people. So I don't think because, let's say I hated Rob Reiner and I knew him personally or something for some reason, and he dies. I think that I'm not obligated in any way to be suddenly like, oh gosh, what a big loss, blah, 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 make up a bunch of shit. However, fewer words in this case would be better. Okay. So I would just kind of keep my mouth shut, move on, say, wow, what a tragedy. These things shouldn't happen. Just move on, focus on something else. Having said that, and this is the part where, look, we don't beat around the bush here on this podcast. You've heard me say positive and negative things about both sides of the aisle. Trump was way the fuck out of line, in my opinion. Like, what he said was disgusting. And particularly coming from the president of the United States, that is just completely, in my opinion, unacceptable, unfucking acceptable. And I don't have anything else to say.
Well, I think in general, as a private citizen, you hold no obligation to the dead. However, I speak all the time about uniforms and jobs, And if you take a job, you are required to look and act a certain way, period. And depending upon the level of job and the responsibility of the job and the title of the job, that requires even more of that from you. And it doesn't matter how you feel. That's the maturity that you show working that particular job, whether it's a cashier and you smiling at an unruly customer, or you're the president and a national treasure dies. His responsibility in the job is to not do what he did.
Well, Phil, let's just cut to the chase. The last time I checked, the president of the United States is supposed to represent 100% of the people.
Right.
Okay. 100% of the people. So, I mean, just by that definition, 50% of the people are not going to agree with you. They're on the other side.
And Mike, presidents literally pay for wordsmiths, more than one.
You wouldn't know it from him.
I'm no wordsmith, and I could have gave him a quick little sentence where you literally can get off what you want to say and feel and not be disrespectful.
Right.
Well, me and Mike didn't see eye to eye on a lot of things, but he was absolutely a national treasure. Rest in peace, Mike.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And that is a I don't know. I don't know if this is on our agenda to talk about here today, but it's grinding on me right now. You know, this week with Trump is just bullshit. I mean, I don't know if you saw the story about the Hall of Fame of presidents or whatever the hell it was, plaques in the White House or outside on the thing, and this is. I had to triple check the story to make sure that I wasn't being spoofed. You know, I thought it was probably AI or something, and I'm looking at it, and he had plaques made up with the bronze things with metal writing and the whole thing, talking about pretty much raining on everybody's parade except for him. That's embarrassing.
I think that a lot of his early success and his ability to win this second election after losing one in between all stemmed from people having sympathy and empathy for him. And because of that, they were behind him in some of the things that he did to strike back at those who struck at him. With some of the legal proceedings he was put through and stuff like that and everything.
Yeah, because some of that was bullshit for sure.
But at a certain point, people are like, okay, you didn't got your get back. Now you're just acting like a spoiled little brat.
Well, exactly. Who puts up a plaque on the side of the White House talking about how Sleepy Joe Biden and Obama are the most divisive president in history and all this? I mean,
early on,
it's unbelievable, Phil.
And I don't mind him saying things about Biden and Obama because they did it throughout their term. So I get it. Like I said, I don't have a problem with you getting your get back, but he has really turned it into the most infantile presidency I've ever seen in my life.
And who paid for these plaques? And who installed them? And then they were all proud at the press conference. She's saying, "Oh well, he wrote most of these himself." Well, that ain't a plus. I mean, give me a break. So I don't know. I mean, wow.
So, Mike, the president used his primetime address Wednesday
could have keep me going there.
A very stark before and after picture of the U.S. economy, saying he inherited the brink of ruin, that Biden-era inflation made life unaffordable, and that under his policies, prices, wages, and even Thanksgiving dinner have all sharply swung back in America's favor. He's listing drops in groceries, gas, airfare, hotel rates, and even rolling out a one-time 1,776 Warrior dividend for every service member. Mike, how do you interpret this kind of victory lap messaging? Do you think it actually resonates with the public, or do people only trust their own bills?
Well, first of all, it's not unheard of for a president to be doing a recap at the end of the year in December or right before the holidays. And so him going on national television last night touting what they've done for the first year is not unusual from that sense. Other presidents have done that. However, I'm going to use one example that I have pulled up on my screen right in front of me. You should roll the tape of Donald Trump. He last night, he said the gas prices. I'm going to address some of this because he talked about the economy a lot. And he said gas prices nationwide have dropped below $2.50 a gallon. And in some states, in fact, it dropped below $2 a gallon. I'm quoting him. That's what he said.
Mm-hmm.
Today, I'm looking at the screen. The national average in the United States is $2.89 a gallon. It's not $2.50. It's not nowhere near $2.50. In fact, there are no states in America that the average is below $2.50. And I don't see any state that's anywhere near $2. So what I'm getting to is his speech last night was chock full of lies. He just makes shit up. It's fantasy. It's not real. I mean, I don't think the turkey price was down 30-something% either. I'm like, I mean, they're just not. I don't know where he gets his. He just makes it up, Phil.
That's the only thing that was accurate, because I bought a turkey and I bought a big turkey for $5.68.
Wow.
So there must be something going on specifically with turkey. But it's not reflective of the food industry.
Well, I'm gonna say it sure ain't gas. So I mean,
gas is for something here.
I'm about to say in Washington today, the average gas price is $3.97.
Where's that at? It ain't around my house.
Right, probably not. And they range. California is at $4.34. Connecticut's at $3. I mean, if you look, the cheapest gas in the entire country is Arkansas, and it's $2.47. So he last night said nationwide, almost the whole country, with a few exceptions, is under $2.50. Total lie. And then when he said under $2, I mean, I don't know where you would get that.
And Mike, when you're quoting these averages, for instance, like you said, the average here was $3.99.
That's regular. That's regular.
Right. The regular gas that I see is about $4.50. How much did you say it was in California?
California for regular gas, $4.34.
Most people I know say that their gas is like $5-something.
$5. Yeah.
So what I'm getting to is the average is the average. Basically, if you live in a decent neighborhood, your gas costs more than that average.
Exactly. So, but not just one thing that he brought up on his 40-minute or however long it was speech, which, by the way, was, in my opinion, not a great. I mean, it was his usual blaming on everybody else, and all these great things. I mean, he stopped 9 wars, and I mean, he just, like, some of the shit is just not some of it. Like, from what I heard last night, the whole thing was made up.
So I sent you a text right afterwards asking you, is this his greatest speech? And the reason why I asked is because my first thought was, if everything he said was accurate, that was his greatest speech.
Yes. If it was all accurate, I think I even saw that on MSNBC. If all of this was accurate, the country would be doing fantastic.
The reality
is it's not.
Yeah, I'd be trying to get him to have a third term.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't know where he's living, but it ain't it's definitely in fantasy world.
So, Mike, to me, it's very obvious that the whole purpose of this, of what he said and him saying it, was because they are trying to be proactive for the midterms.
Mm-hmm.
The Democrats have been working on it for a while. Their word has been affordability. They've been working
Yep.
on that and working on it, and it's been working. So this was like the first major attack, and it was a good major attack because most people don't fact check these things. So I think it was effective.
Oh, I don't disagree with that, Phil. And here's the reality of it is, and I've said this before, and I apologize to all you dumb people out there, but Americans are dumb. Okay, let's just cut to the chase. Americans are some of the dumbest people on planet fucking Earth, and I agree that 99% of the people are not going to fact check that, and particularly on his fervent core group of people are going to be like, yeah, look at what we've done. Now, having said that, I'm not saying he hasn't done anything, and he by far, I'm going to still stick by the fact of what I said on prior podcasts. He has done more than any other president that I can in my lifetime.
Oh,
meaning,
no doubt.
I mean, he's busy as shit doing all sorts of stuff, good, bad, and ugly, and everything in between. But you know, if you compare him to Biden or you compare him to Obama or somebody like that, I mean, yeah, he's doing a lot. What I find to be a problem with him is that there is really no need to say nasty things about dead people or to say completely non-factual things that I can look up in a matter of 10 seconds on ChatGPT. You know what I'm saying? Like, he doesn't need why he needs to exaggerate the shit out of everything. I don't know. Like, he could have stuck to some like, for instance, he did drastically reduce. I mean, I love the. Also, by the way, he also said that 0 immigrants have come across the border. I mean, that's bullshit. Now, why not just say he shut the border down like nobody's ever seen before and basically has successfully stopped the immigration wave that's coming? That's a fact. That's true. I mean, if he gave real numbers, it's very impressive. But when you say nobody has come across the border, now it's just stupid. I don't know.
Well, I'm going to hear people argue and use everything that he said as facts.
Oh, guaranteed. Yeah.
So, Mike, every time a new president takes office, we hear the same refrain. The economy they're inheriting isn't theirs yet. For months, sometimes a year, we blame the previous administration for inflation, jobs, markets, and growth. But at some point, that grace period has to end. Mike, when does the economy stop being inherited and start fully belonging to the Trump administration?
Well, when I'm a politician, let's say Trump gets elected for a third term, which he wants to do. I mean, he'll still be talking about Biden 12 years from now. I mean, let's just be honest. I don't think they're ever going to stop. But, you know, I think, well, it depends on what you're talking about. So if we're talking about financial markets obviously move fairly slowly. But I would say, you know, a year to a year and a half, after that range of time, if you're still talking about what the prior administration did, you're doing the blame game, right? I mean, you've had sufficient time. Look, they've done how many rate drops have they done? The Treasury has done now 3 in a row, I think. You've had enough time to do enough significant financial adjustments, let's say, to change the policy of what's going on in regular Joe's pocketbook, let's say, right?
My time frame in general, my rule is a year to year and a half.
Yeah.
But this particular presidency, it's all on him right now. No, just like you said, no president has moved and made the drastic moves that he's made in such a short period of time. He owns
coming out of his own mouth. He
Yeah.
touted the tariffs like 47 times last night. The money that's going to the troops is 1776 or whatever. Which, by the way, I'm gonna add that's like a, that's almost like a bribe. I think that's more along the lines of him trying to bribe the military into supporting his third term. But that's a whole other topic.
All I thought about that was you couldn't even just go ahead and make that 2.
Because he's so obsessed with numbers.
Right.
1776, I mean, yeah. This is anyway.
2026.
Yeah, that would have worked too.
Good point, Phil.
I'll take that. But yeah, I mean, all this stuff with the tariffs. Look, he said we're going to get our biggest tax cut and biggest tax bonus ever next year. Of course, well, you're going to do that right before the midterms. So they're talking about giving $2,000. I mean, that's already their idea. They want to give $2,000 per person in the United States a tax refund next year, right before the midterms. Now, here's the reality of that's good marketing because that actually works. That works.
I agree.
That's called buying votes.
Well, they buy your vote one way or another.
Yeah. Yep.
So he's messing up nationally. He's messing up internationally too in some people's eyes. President Trump says he ordered a total and complete blockade of sanctioned oil tankers moving in and out of Venezuela, accusing the Maduro government of terrorism, drug smuggling, and human trafficking, while U.S. warships move into the region. Mike, does this mark a shift from sanctions to direct maritime enforcement? And what comes next?
All right, so here's the part that I tend to be, I'm not 100%, but I tend to actually fall in line on his side on this one a little bit. So Venezuela has done a number of things. One, it's arguably a terrorist state. It arguably is Maduro did not win an election and stayed in power and cheated the election. I mean, that's pretty agreed upon by just about everybody. The people don't like him. The region doesn't like him. He's dealing with bad hombres, let's say. And if you go back in time, they literally stole a lot of what they have. They did steal from American companies. That's a fact. Not much different than Cuba, by the way. Cuba did it as well. A lot of Cuba was built by the Americans and was invested in by big chains like the Hilton and stuff. And then, when Castro overthrew the government, they took it all. They just stole it, and we had to get out. Well, Venezuela did the same thing. So what Trump is arguing for is getting back, because I wish he would just be honest about it. We're looking for a regime change, and we're looking to get put in a government that was elected by the people that, for all intents and purposes, the woman that was elected is a pro-American. So I get just say it. Just say it. To start talking about, Maduro is smuggling drugs or all this stuff, yeah, they're probably involved in that behind. I mean, I don't think Maduro has any involvement in smuggling drugs or sending out drug boats, So, I mean, that's just nonsense. Like, that just defocusing the whole thing. So to do this blockade of the oil tankers, which, by the way, a lot of these are shadow tankers, and they're dealing with Russia, and they're dealing with, other rogue states that we've put embargoes and whatnot in. I'm not against that.
I agree with everything you said except about the election. I don't think he lost or won the election. I think it was an illegitimate election.
Yeah. True.
And this is what I mean. That particular election reminds me of the movie Sting, The Sting, the first opening scene where they're having a poker game and there's a guy that's going to come in and cheat. And the guy that's already there is cheating too. So when he cheats, he thinks he's won, but then he doesn't win because the other guy cheated. And I believe that's what happened in the election. The U.S. government came in to affect the election so that the lady would win, but then she still didn't win. So then they were like, "Whoa, because
they cheated more." Yep.
So that's the only thing I disagree with. But since I'm an American, I'm all for them getting rid of the guy they don't want and getting the girl they do want.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable in my hypocrisy.
And as a traveler, I mean, that's a big chunk of land in South America that's beautiful, has a lot of resources, and a good and at one time was an incredible place to visit. So, I am pro opening that up because that country effectively has been very similar to, say, a North Korea situation. So I don't know that I love the fact that it has to be the U.S. doing this independently and with nobody else on our team.
Well, we got to. We want their stuff. We don't want to share it.
That's true. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, and that's my point, Phil. Let's just call it what it is. I mean, let's just call it what it is. We want to send our multinational. We want to send ExxonMobil in there.
Yeah,
that's
Mike,
what we want to do.
That's my only issue with politics. Like I just said, I'm comfortable in my hypocrisy. That's the game of politics. You are biased towards your country.
Right. Should be.
So, Mike, the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is calling out several Democrat-led states for refusing to align their tax codes with President Trump's new federal tax law, arguing those states are blocking residents from benefits like no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and new senior deductions. Mike, is this legitimate state autonomy at work, or are governors actively denying voters federally approved tax relief?
Well, I mean, I think, unfortunately, we see a lot of activism on the state level against the federal government in certain states. And, you bring up that, and, meanwhile, we got like the Minnesota thing going on where it's like billions of dollars were stolen, and, it's a big, great American cover up, probably the biggest deal in the history of the United States, yet you barely see it. Like I did a little research and I went on MSNBC. I went through the bottom of their site. I was reading all about their, their legalese at the bottom of the website. And there was not one iota of a mention of anything about that going on. So there's like significant bias, and if you don't think that there's states biased against this, but this is time for the people in those places to rise up and be like, hey, wait a minute here, if the federal government's saying we should get no tax on tips and my state's blocking me from doing that, it's time to vote people out. But unfortunately, that's not the way it works. I mean, that's just not the way it works. Okay.
They can't do anything about the tax break that the federal government is doing. They're implementing a state tax.
Right. Which that's legal.
But I have a problem with my state or any state using me as the pawn to fight the federal government.
Right.
And I'm the one that's paying for your bluff or your fight.
Right.
So that's my biggest issue. And secondly, it's like for instance, here in our state, we don't have income in state tax. But they are constantly fighting for it, and we vote against it. It's amazing how the government just decides they want to do something, even though the vast majority, I'm not talking about like 51%, I'm talking about like 80, 90% of your constituency wants something, and you decide, no, me personally, I don't benefit from this, so I will go against my constituency. And I see that on the state level and the federal level. And that's what pisses me off most about government, is that ultimately they do whatever they want. And it bothers me that people are always talking about, you don't understand your right to vote and this, that, and other. I'm like, yes, I do. My vote works as long as my vote aligns with what they already want to do. Because if it doesn't, they're still going to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, I mean, it's like what I was saying about Trump earlier. You got to represent all of the people.
Yes.
Not just the people that elected you.
But I'm making the point. They're not
even the people that elected them.
They're not representing the people at all.
Right.
They're like, we're going to take your money to spite them.
Right.
Fuck them.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Mike, something that isn't being talked about enough is how state decisions could hit people living on the road. Nomads, travelers, overlanders, vanlifers, retirees, folks who depend on seasonal, tip-based work to keep moving. If some states don't match the new federal no tax on tips rules, does that create a real financial squeeze for people who rely on short-term gigs to survive?
Absolutely. You know, and we've talked about this on the podcast in the past as well, you know, where as a nomad or a retiree or somebody that's full-time RVing or whatnot, you fall into this weird assortment of a gigantic loophole where you're not legal anywhere really because you don't really have a residence, because that definition in the United States, to have a residence, you have to reside there. And, you know, if you're on the road all the time or traveling around or living at campgrounds or whatnot, you don't have a residence. You don't have a legal residence. So, you know, what happens is, to bring up what you're saying about, particularly when it's state mandated things like that, what nomads are doing, and you see it even around me right here. Like if I had to look at, you know, license plates from American plated cars, 80% of them right here in my town are from South Dakota, right? So what happens is nomads and travelers are picking states that work to their benefit, regardless of what state they're really in or really from or might or may not reside in, sort of part-time or whatever. So, you know, there's a competition between, like, nobody in the world is going to claim like, oh yeah, I'm going to drive around I'm going to be a nomad full time and I'm going to drive around with a California plated car. I mean, you're dumb as a box of rocks if you do that. Like, why would you do that? No, nobody's doing that.
I agree with everything you said, but I also see the problem is, okay, so I've got a plate in Idaho, but I'm working this part-time job, almost all tips in another state. You're creating a tax patchwork and legal patchwork that I've got to deal with, that hopefully my accountant or some software will figure out, but you've really complicated my taxes.
Oh yeah, and it drives up your
not to mention took my money.
File them. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yep.
And bro, this pisses me off. It doesn't affect me, but I know so many people who have laid out their financial situation to me, who are overlanders or travelers or nomads, and I know that they subsidize whatever other monies they have with these cash grabs from tips and things like that. And they were looking forward to this next tax season. This was going to be a windfall for them. This was going to be an opportunity for them to update something or repair their vehicle. This was going to allow them to replenish a few dollars in their bank that they lost during COVID. So
and they're getting screwed because they worked in a state where the leadership of that state wanted to, get a slap in on Donald Trump.
And I think this widens the gap between stationary workers and travel-based workers. I think it like widens, it changes money and benefits and how you can negotiate them now.
Yep.
Because everybody's not working for tips.
No.
And then we didn't even cover retirees. Man, Mike, everything about retirees, in my opinion, should have been already figured out maybe 50 or 60 years ago.
Well, that's the thing is because they're still talking right now about, I mean, that whole thing is about whether it's tax on your what do you call it? I want to say pension. What is it?
Social Security.
Social Security, right.
That is the most hypocritical thing in the world.
Right.
That you're saying paying all these taxes to get this money, and when you get this money, paying taxes.
Right.
That's crazy.
That is totally crazy.
I feel like once you've officially retired, you should just get everything.
Yep.
You should no longer pay any taxes other than a sales tax.
Unless you're working, which by definition would mean you're not retired.
If you have a home and you've retired, there should be a reduction in how much you pay in tax on your home. It should be a reduction in taxes on your home as it gets older anyway. I'm totally opposite in my thought about that. Your taxes constantly go up owning a house. And I think it should actually go down as you have spent those years in that same place paying into the city and the state.
Well, the problem is, as we've talked about before, the American system is not set up to take care of the elderly. It's not set up to take care of education. It's not set up to take care of sick people, mentally ill people. I mean, our general, let's call it lifestyle support system is crappy.
And Mike, just for those listening, if they're wondering what states are the blue states that are not working with Trump on the tax code, it's Colorado, New York, Illinois, and DC. So Colorado name used to come up in good ways all the time throughout my life. But in the last 5 years, they've been on the wrong side of a lot of things, especially in the last 2 years.
Well, you heard me say it on, I think we did a podcast one time of our favorite states. Colorado does not appear anywhere near a favorite state for me. To me, yeah, they're only one step behind California in my view, and they're becoming more and more of a nanny state. They've made a lot of crappy decisions about a lot of crappy things. It's expensive. I'm not a fan.
It's crazy. When I first started journeying to Colorado, it was a very, very red state. Red, I didn't like it for that. It was, right. I mean, it was just, it was like
redneck red.
Yes, you said it. And now it is like,
well, because so many out-of-staters moved into the Denver Front Range that all the people are located in that misery hole between, say, Fort Collins and Grand Junction or whatever. They're not Grand Junction. In the south. All along that corridor is shit. It could take you 4 hours to drive 20 miles.
They've reached Grand Junction.
Yeah,
absolutely.
They've reached
any like real city on that west side. Has changed.
That's a good point. Yep.
Colorado. I used to love Colorado, man. That was like top 5 states that I would recommend.
I hear you. I hear you. I mean, it's still obviously a beautiful state, but man, not where I would want to live.
Mike, when I was in Fairbanks, Alaska, I accidentally wandered several floors into a restricted area at the University of Alaska, right where they were restoring the famous Into the Wild bust. I posted about it on Instagram.
Yep.
I wasn't supposed to be there, but once questioned, I was welcomed in with no real security barriers. Looking back now at today's campus shootings, it's unsettling how easy that access was. So my question to you is the era of open, unsecured college campuses officially over?
Well, I mean, that's a good question. I mean, we're talking about obviously this Brown University incident in Rhode Island, and what's come out to me is that holy hell, I mean, Rhode Island must be lacking in law enforcement or something. But
wow,
what a bunch of dingledorfs! I mean, did you watch these press conferences? I'm like, who the fuck are they hiring in Rhode Island? What is wrong with that state? Mess. And you know they get up there. They couldn't give an answer as to whether it was a targeted shooting, whether it was random, whether it was somebody that was had a key card to the building. They got no camera footage barely of this guy. They took the wrong guy into captivity. I mean, what in the hell? And the more I watch the thing is the more it seemed like it might have been a targeted thing, because look, if you're going to commit a mass shooting, would you do it on a weekend? And would you and the one girl that got shot, that got killed, got hit I don't know how many times. So he obviously fired multiple rounds at one person. So, but these are answers that they're not willing to give, but more likely it sounds like they just have no idea. And now I've heard some rumors that it might be connected to that other college shooting. And this brings up a whole other topic of what you've talked about, whether this is all part of or let's call it a conspiracy or something deeper going on here, because the policing is so bad at the Brown thing. You start wondering whether the university is hiding something. Like, it's that bad.
Mike, we're seeing mass casualty attacks happening with disturbing frequency, and more of them are aimed at specific communities, including Jewish gatherings like the Hanukkah celebration attacks at Sydney's Bondi Beach, where 15 people were killed and dozens more injured. This wasn't random, it was targeted. Mike, was driving this rise in ideological violence, and why does the Jewish community seem to be increasingly in the crosshairs?
Well, I think that's an easy thing to answer, if you ask me. I mean, it's there's a rising sentiment there, which was largely, and I'm not justifying this, but it was largely because of Israel and the Gaza Strip, and the rhetoric. It's just there's so much media rhetoric. And a lot of it starts in the United States, the two sides arguing back and forth between the right and the left. And that creates people that have just strong emotions. And unfortunately, if you are somewhere on the spectrum of mental illness, those emotions can turn into, I got to go do something. And, Netanyahu invaded Gaza and he killed all these people, and I feel like I got to prove a point, and I better go mow them down at the Hanukkah celebration. So I mean that's where it comes from, and I read about the Australian thing in particular, and the government was very they didn't get involved. There was a lot of chatter and there was a lot of resentment, and the government kind of stayed on the sideline a little bit with the whole Israel Gaza thing. And I think they didn't address the issue early enough, and they let it spiral out of control. And I mean, to some extent, this is what's happening in the United States. And people are always like, well, gun violence in the U.S. and massacres and all this stuff is the U.S. is. I mean, it's only a matter of time, by the way, where other countries catch us. It's only a matter of time. And, whether they have guns or as many guns as Americans do is irrelevant, because it really only takes, a couple guys with a couple guns to do what these guys did, right?
I agree. I believe the Jewish community's PR department has done a terrible job for itself in the last few years. Most people had some kind of sympathy for Jewish people in general because of the Holocaust. And my whole life, there's been a sentiment like that toward them, that they've been through the worst of the worst. But and this is not, I'm not giving you my feelings, I'm telling you what I've picked up as a general consensus amongst people. There were people there are a lot of people that still to this day don't really know what's going on politically over in the Middle East with the Jewish community in Palestine or whatever. But they do know that at one time the Jews went through a Holocaust and it was horrible, and we feel sorry for you. And most people have felt that way for a long time. But now when you see that same people who have made so many movies about themselves, written so many books about themselves and what they've been through, and then you're putting another race of people through the exact same thing that you had done to you, people start falling off the bandwagon real quick.
Yep.
Now, obviously, there are people who are believers or non-believers in Zionists. There are religious reasons for this. There are people who have religious feeling. But this major shift that you've seen in the last few years is because people sense a hypocrisy in their community.
Yep. Yep, for sure. And I don't want to say this out loud, but I think it's actually going to get worse.
Oh, I do too. I do too, because like I separated between people who have always felt that way for whatever reasons they have. But now that you have a community of people who didn't have a dog in the fight supporting you, once people feel more comfortable with their hate when they have more support. It's just that simple.
Yep.
Mike, can I switch this to something personal real quick?
Okay.
Because I do a lot of editing. I've worked in pretty much every level of film industry, media that you could possibly think of behind the camera. So this is kind of something personal here.
Okay.
I think we might be watching the beginning of the end of editing software as we know it. For decades, photography and video editing meant mastering Photoshop, Premiere, Final Cut, layers, masks, timelines, plugins, all that stuff. But now, with the announcement of GPT Image 1.5, you don't use tools anymore. You just describe what you want. And if this trajectory holds, only the most complex Hollywood productions will still need actual editors. So, Mike, are we entering a world where traditional editing software simply becomes obsolete?
I mean, I think that's happening slowly for sure. I mean, I can tell you from this is personal to me as well, because I use, as you mentioned, I use Photoshop and I use Final Cut. They are arguably, and have been for years, they're very complicated to use. Like,
absolutely,
very complicated. If you've never used them, trust me on this. They're just complicated. Even some of the things that I do fairly commonly with it. Occasionally, if I haven't done it in a while, I gotta refresh myself. I can't even remember. So there's just so many buttons and so many tools and so many plugins and so many all this other stuff. It's it's a breath of fresh air when you tell me I can just say, I would like to do a 5-minute video on how I built my deck. And this is the following footage that I have. Put it together in some reasonable form, and I'm going to overdub it with and describe what I'm doing the whole time. And if I could say it that way and do it instead of the, as you know, Phil, I'm preaching to the choir. It's like 3,000 keystrokes to edit the 46 slots that you did, and then match the audio up with it, and then audio grade and video grade, and they're just yes. To answer your question, I think the days of those traditional video editing things are. I don't know that it's going to happen super quickly, but we're definitely headed that way. They all, by the way, they all have AI plugins to those programs already as it is.
Right. So when you say no time soon, give me what you conceptualize as a time frame.
Well,
because long to me might be short to you, and vice versa.
I mean, I do think that my prediction is in 3 years from now we will be doing it radically different than we are today.
Oh, I think we'll be doing it radically different in maybe less than a year. But I think we'll see like our first software where it's more voice commands in the next 3 years.
I mean, you can look at some of those like Canva as an example. Mm-hmm. That is the god awful piece of shit. Okay, like you could tell I'm not sponsored by them. Any of you guys out there, you just know it's garbage. That thing is shit. Anyways, off my soapbox. But that is an early stage of a little bit of what we're talking about. That's a one-stop shop for producing anything. I mean, they spent so much money running ads during, I don't know what I was watching. They were running Canva ads. It's like, yeah, I mean, it'd be great if it did what you said in the ad, but it doesn't.
Right. The amount of skill that it takes to use a lot of these AI editing things is equivalent to the skill you needed before.
I know.
Maybe more. You have to remember so much.
Right.
So, Mike, is there anything else you want to talk about?
I think that's good for today. I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas for next week, because our next podcast is going to occur the day after Christmas, and Phil and I are going to be doing a sort of, I guess we'll call it a year in review, right? Is that what we're going to call it? Because that'll be actually the last Random Waypoints podcast of the year, because the following week is 2026.
Woohoo!
Unbelievable, right?
So we're still putting together next week's podcast, but it's one of the rare ones where we're actually preparing in advance. So this should be one of our best ones.
Oh, yeah, or worst. Maybe we're over prepared.
Anything else, Mike?
That's it for today.
All right, guys, you know what I'm going to say. Stay safe, tread lightly, and hopefully we'll see you here or on the trail soon.
You have been listening to Waypoint Overland's Random Waypoints. Like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more.